Hi everyone, welcome to the third webinar of a series of webinars conducted by TCS Online in lieu of the upcoming strategic case study examinations happening in May and August 2022. In our first webinar, I highlighted what you need to do before the pre-scene is released. So I highlighted about exam prep technique or what you need to do in order to prepare for the strategic case study examination, which is happening in May. And in our second webinar, I took you through the pre-scene document. I, carried out a pre-scene analysis. Only part of the pre-scene was analyzed. Okay. And in this webinar, the third webinar, the last webinar, I'll be taking you through answering technique because it's of utmost importance that you know how to provide answers, what type of answers you are supposed to provide, and on top of that, how to manage your time, because in most cases, what I've figured out is most CIMA students, they run out of time when it comes to a case study examination, and most CIMA students do not know how many points to write based on the mark allocation. And all these things will be discussed in today's session. And let me remind you before I commence today's webinar, this webinar is recorded just like the previous two webinars, and the recorded versions are uploaded into our website. You can access these webinars by checking out the free content, or all these webinars are uploaded to the free content tab. So I invite you guys to go through our free content. Okay, so let's look at the session outcomes. First things first, I'll be highlighting about answering technique, what you need to do with regards to providing answers. So when it comes to providing answers at the SCS level. And as the second part of today's session, I will be discussing a mini mock, and I'll be taking you through the suggested answers. And oops. Somebody's mic is on. George, I think it's your mic. Can you please mute it? All right, thank you. Okay, and the second part of today's session, in the second part of today's session, I will be taking you through a mini mock and the suggested answer. So I'll be practically showing to you guys what type of answers you need to provide and what type of answer planning techniques you need to use in your examination. Okay, so first things first, let's look at answering techniques. When providing answers at the strategic case study level, you are supposed to use appropriate headings and subheadings. So students who had, done OCS and MCS should already know this. Okay, but I know that there are a set of students who are coming through the FLP route or the exemption route. So this might be the first time you are doing a case study examination with CIMA. So you should be mindful about these techniques. So you have to use appropriate headings and subheadings. So in a typical task, as I told you in webinar number 1, your paper is divided into 3 main tasks or 3 main areas. And under each task, you would see 2 or 3 subtasks. Okay, so let's assume that there is a certain task with 2 subtasks. Then in your answer, you need to have 2 main headings. Okay, for each subtask, you need to come up with a main heading. And under the main heading, if you want to highlight further points, or if you want to further subdivide your answer, then you are invited to use subheadings. Okay, and a heading needs to be in bold and underlined format, and a subheading needs to be just bold, needs to be in just bold format. So please remember, a heading is bold and underlined, and a subheading is supposed to be just bold in format. Okay, and when providing answers, the examiner expects you to provide answers in paragraphs, and a typical paragraph should consist of 2 to 4 sentences, nothing less, nothing more. Okay, so your examiner is actually discouraging you to provide answers in bullet points or the examiner is discouraging you to provide answers which are in single sentences. So you are not supposed to provide single lined answers. Instead, you are supposed to provide answers in paragraphs. So for instance, if your answer has 8 main points, then for each point, you need to come up with a paragraph. So if there are 8 main points which you are trying to highlight in one of your answers, then ideally you need to have 8 different paragraphs. So why is the examiner asking you to, stick to this type of a format? Because if you provide answers in paragraphs, if you use your headings and subheadings appropriately, then it makes the invigilator's life easier when it comes to marking your papers. So you are supposed to take 3 hours to attempt the entire paper. However, a CIMA invigilator takes only about 10 minutes to mark your paper. Okay, so within 10 minutes, when the invigilator is trying to allocate marks, if you had written all your answers in one single paragraph, then the invigilator is not in a position to easily identify the main points, because usually when it comes to marking any type of professional examination, an invigilator is involved with something called speed reading. So when somebody is involved with speed reading, this individual is not gonna read the entire answer word to word. Instead, they have the ability of picking the main points, and based on that, they can easily allocate marks. That's how they mark the entire paper in 10 minutes. So if you provide the answer in one single paragraph, or if your paragraphs are too long, inside one paragraph, if you have 2 or 3 main points, then the invigilator, since the invigilator is not reading the entire answer, might actually miss out on it. And on top of that, when you write everything together, when you have not separated your paragraphs, you are creating some type of negativity in the mind of the invigilator. And this negativity will not actually help you, because if let's assume you are supposed to get 80 marks out of 150, let's assume you have gotten 78 marks. So if you stick to these answering techniques, if you use your headings and subheadings appropriately, if you use paragraphs appropriately, then the invigilator would have a positive mindset about your answer, and he or she might give you the 2 additional marks, thereby ensuring that you pass the exam. Okay, so it's better to listen to the CIMA examiner. It's better to generate a positive attitude in the mind of the invigilator, so that you end up passing the examination. Okay, and for each task there's a word limit. The word limit is 900 to 1000 words. I've made a blunder here. It needs to be 1000 words per 60-minute task. Okay, so although a word limit is provided, I do not want you to count your words, or don't be too concerned about the word limit, because if you stick to my time plan, if you stick to my answer planning technique, unknowingly you will achieve this word count. Okay, so don't be too concerned about the word count, because that's exactly what the CIMA examiner is telling you. Okay, and when it comes to planning your answers, 1/3 of the time should be allocated towards reading and planning, and 2/3 of your time should be allocated towards typing. Okay, so out of the 60 minutes, 1/3 of your time should be allocated for reading and planning. Okay, so what I've seen is in most cases, students read the question and straight away they start typing answers. I'm not recommending you to do that, because if you don't spend quality time trying to plan the answer, then halfway through the answer, you might figure out that you had given a wrong answer. Then what students would do is they would delete the answer, or delete the answer which was already typed, and they would start from scratch again. So when you go through such an experience, what happens is, in the back of your mind, you keep constantly reminding yourself, okay, I wasted time, so Because of that, you keep reminding yourself that you need to speed up. So that leads to panic. And when you panic at the exam, it leads to failure. So I do not want anybody to panic at the exam. So how can you maintain your composure rather than reading the question and typing answer straight away? Spend some quality time planning the answer or structurizing the answer. And once you have a structure, 2/3 of your time can be allocated towards typing. Okay, so take about 25 to 30 minutes, 15 to 20 minutes to read and structure the answer, and the remaining time can be allocated towards typing your answers. Okay, and the expected typing speed is minimum 20 words per minute. This is no big deal, since most of you are from corporate environments. Definitely your typing speed should not be a problem. Okay, and under each subtask there's a weightage provided, weightage for each requirement as per time allocated. So once I take you through the mini mock, which is going to be which I'm going to discuss tonight, you'd understand what this is about. So this weightage provided under each subtask can be used as a means of stipulating how much of time you are supposed to allocate for each subtask. And on top of that, you are in a position to determine how many marks are allocated for each subtask. Because when you are planning your answer, you need to keep in mind the amount of marks allocated for each subtask and the amount of time which is allocated. Okay, so that's why the weightages are there for. And do not spend time on formatting, because that's not one of the requirements the examiner is looking at. And when providing answers, remember, it's always about the quality of the points, not the quantity. Just because you write chunks and chunks of answers or paragraphs and paragraphs of answers, it does not mean that you are going to get marks. Because the examiner, I highlighted these points in webinar number 1, exam prep as well. So the examiner is hell-bent on providing marks based on the quality of your answer. He or she is not too interested about quantity. That's exactly why I said, that's exactly why I asked you guys to not to worry too much about the word count or the word limit. Because if you structurize your answer properly, if you're addressing the exact requirement of the task or the question, then you'd end up getting marks. So these are the answering techniques which you need to focus on. Then let's move on to answer development, what you need to do with regards to developing answers. So first things first, you are supposed to read the scenario. So when you are reading the scenario, try to understand all the main points. Okay, if you want, you can jot down the main points on the answer screen itself, but I won't recommend that. You are at the strategic case study level. So and you are replicating a role played by a senior finance manager. So as a senior finance manager, you should have the capability of reading the question and understanding the requirements, or remembering the main points. Okay, so read the scenario first, then plot the requirements into subheadings. So I said, if in a typical question, if there are 2 subheadings, then if there are 2 subtasks, then I said you need to come up with 2 subheadings, not subheadings, main headings. Okay, so you need to plot out the main headings, and under each main heading you have to plot out the subheadings, and invest time to understand the requirement clearly. Try to understand the exact requirement, because usually at the strategic case study level, this is not too this is actually easy. But in some cases, especially when you look at the FLP students, or students who come from the FLP route, they lack the capability to understand the requirement clearly. Okay, so try to spend some time and figure out what the exact requirement is. Then after understanding the requirement clearly, you are supposed to plan the answer, and a maximum of 1/3 of the time can be taken towards answer planning, and I'll be showing how to develop an answer plan in the second part of this webinar, and plan the answer in the answer screen itself. So I've seen students when it comes to planning answers, they try to do it on the scratch pad provided. You're not supposed to do that. You can do the answer plan, or you can develop the answer plan on the answer screen itself. And once you have the answer plan, expand the points in the answer plan. So once you have the answer plan, then it's a matter of just expanding the answer plan. So once you have the answer plan, it's something like a skeleton structure of your entire answer. And when it comes to typing your answers, what you are supposed to do is you are supposed to flesh out your skeleton so that you come up with a fully fledged answer. Okay, right. Then before we move on to the mini mock, let me talk about bouncing back from failure. There could be students who failed last time. So you need to figure out what actually went wrong last time. So did you give your best? You need to be involved with a personal reflection. Try to figure out what actually went wrong. It might have been because you did not do mocks, because in most instances, students fail because they just do 1 or 2 mocks. That's not too relevant, because you can't cover the entire syllabus if you do just 1 or 2 mocks. So that might have led to you failing the examination, or else it could have been the fact that you started preparing yourself during the last week or the last 2 weeks. You can't prepare yourself within just 1 week, because there I would suggest you do 5 exam standard mocks. So if you are supposed to attempt 5 exam standard mocks, then you can't do it within a week. So you have to start right now, because you have enough time. You have about 4 weeks to the exam. That's enough time for you to do 5 mock exams and go through all the additional material which we have provided. Okay, and on top of that, I've seen certain students not attempting 3-hour mocks. So they just go through the suggested answer without attempting or practicing mocks. I would suggest that you practice mocks, because especially when it comes to planning your answers or coming up with answer plans, you can't do it for the first time at the exam. You have to keep practicing it. Okay, so if you keep practicing it in the mock exams, then you'd find it you'd find it extremely easy to come up with answer plans or plan your answers appropriately at the real exam. If you do 3-hour mocks, if you practice 3-hour mock papers before the exam, then at the exam you'd find it extremely easy to manage your answers, manage your time, and pass the examination easily. So likewise, you need to carry out a personal reflection to figure out what actually went wrong last time. Where did you go wrong in the exam? Need to diagnose the reasons first and address them this time. So after finding out the problems, there's absolutely no point of trying to find remedies. There's absolutely no point of replicating the same problems in this exam. You have to find remedies. Okay, you need to figure out, okay, what went wrong, what's the solution. Okay, refer to the mini mock and suggested answers as well as the examiner's report in order to understand what type of answers you are supposed to provide. So I'm going to take you through the mini mock tonight. Hopefully you'd understand the type of answers you are supposed to provide, and what type of information is supposed to be brought in from the pre-scene when providing your answers. Did you get feedback on your mock exams, exam answer scripts last time? If not, it is recommended that you opt for that option this time, because certain students are comfortable with engaging with self-study. Okay, but majority of the students need some help, because especially if you are coming through the FLP route, you do not know what type of answers you are supposed to provide, the quality of answers you are supposed to provide. So in such a context, it's better if you can seek personalized feedback, especially if you are coming through the FLP route or if you failed the examination last time. Okay, and based on identifying what went wrong, then you need to come up with solutions to or you need to come up with remedies, or you need to take remedial action. And based on that, you need to you are supposed to develop an action plan. So you are supposed to work harder and smarter than the previous attempt. I would recommend you to go through our website, read our blog posts, so that you would understand what type of problems are faced by students, what type of mistakes are done by students in a common sense. So please go through these blog posts, then you'd better understand how you can overcome each of these issues as well. Okay. Right, then you need to avoid deflections as well, because closer to the exam, usually what happens is students try to do too much. Okay, so don't try to do too much, just stick to a solid plan. You have enough time to prepare yourself, so stick to the plan, stick to what I've suggested, then you can easily pass the exam. So most students, they try to overemphasize on the exam blueprint. Absolutely no point of doing that, because the exam blueprint is provided after each case study is done. So the exam blueprint which is available is applicable to the previous case study which happened. So there's absolutely no point of going through an exam blueprint which is applicable to the previous case study. Okay, and over reliance on predictions. So I've seen so many tutors out there predicting about scenarios which can be tested in your exam. Absolutely no point of doing that. It's you can prepare yourself after going through the pre-scene. You can determine what type of scenarios can be tested. However, there's absolutely no point of relying on predictions, because you are replicating a senior finance manager at the real exam. So as a senior finance manager, you won't know what type of problems the company will face. You won't know what your CFO is gonna ask from you. You won't know about the recommendations your CFO or some other director is seeking from you. So there's absolutely no point of relying too much on predictions. And another mistake done by students is carrying out excessive industry analysis. Absolutely no point of doing it, because you are not supposed to be an industry specialist. I would suggest you to just go through our industry analysis slides. We at TCS has prepared industry analysis slides. Just going through these slides would ensure that you have enough knowledge about what you are supposed to do, or knowledge about the industry. Okay, and misguided use of past papers. That's another common mistake carried out by students. As I told you earlier, past papers or past exam variants are based on totally different case studies. So it's for instance, if this time's case study is based on a manufacturing firm, however, if you went through a past variant which was based on the service sector, then there's absolutely no point of you doing that. Okay, so don't do that. Try to do mock exams which are relevant to your pre-scene. And information overload, especially closer to the exam, students experience this. Just stick to our plan, don't try to do too much. Okay, if you stick to our plan, then you can easily pass the examination. Okay, so before we move on to the mock exam analysis, let me highlight what we offer. We offer two packages. Number one is the essential pack. So if you purchase the essential pack, you would have access to full pre-scene analysis videos. So the entire pre-scene document is analyzed. So there are 4 videos in total. Video number 1 is an industry analysis. Video number 2 and 3 highlights company operations, and in video number 4, I've taken you through the financial statements of the company as well as its closest competitor. Okay, so that's what you'd gain access to, and if you watch these 4 videos, you'd understand everything you need to know about the pre-scene as well as the company. Then we are providing an annotated pre-scene as well. So this makes your life easier because I've highlighted the main points which can be tested in the exam, the syllabus content, and on top of that, the entire pre-scene has been summarized thereby providing annotations. Okay, so we are providing an annotated pre-scene, then industry analysis slides are there so that you gain an in-depth understanding about the industry. The most important product is the 5 exam standard mock exams and suggested answers. I've made sure that the P3, E3 and F3 syllabus areas, all possible syllabus areas are covered in our 5 mock exams. And if you do these 5 mock exams and if you go through the suggested answers properly, then you can easily pass the exam. And there's a separate set of slides for financial analysis, taking you through horizontal analysis as well as ratio analysis. And I've highlighted the top 20 likely issues as well. And if you're doing your SCS exam for the first time, I invite you to go through the SCS familiarization kit as well, so that you understand the technicalities. You can gain access to our WhatsApp discussion forum, and the essential pack comes with a pass guarantee. So this pass guarantee would ensure that if you fail after using our products, still you would have access to the next session or the subsequent session free of charge. So that's the pass guarantee which we are providing. And as I've shared information with you on the group as well as via email, we collated results pertaining to the previous session, and we've gained 100% pass rate for SCS. So, we have maintained this pass rate during the past 4 sessions. Okay, so that's the pass guarantee which we are providing. So the investment is going to be £99, and the value pack is the second package, and you have access to everything which I highlighted under the essential pack. On top of, in addition to the essential pack, you would have access to an online mock exam platform. So this is something which we have created, replicating the Pearson VUE system which you'd use at the real exam. So before you go to the real exam, when attempting your 5 mock examinations, you can do it on our platform itself. Then you can accustom yourself to real exam conditions, and on top of that, it's easier for you to manage your time, plan your answers and whatnot if you attempt all 5 mocks via the online mock exam platform which we are providing. And we are providing professional marking and feedback on 3 mocks. So for mocks 3, 4 and 5, we are providing professional marking, and I myself will be marking your papers. And we provide theory recap material for E3, F3 and P3 related areas. And the investment is £199. So you might be wondering which pack to go for. If you are extremely comfortable with self-studies, I would suggest that you go with the essential pack, because this is all you need. Just watch the 3 videos, the 3 webinars, and you can go through all the additional content and attempt mock exams on your own. So if you are comfortable with self-study, go for the essential pack. However, if you are not too comfortable with self-studies, and if you failed the last time, or if you are coming through the FLP route, then I would suggest that you go for the value pack, especially because of the feedback which you are getting on mocks 3, 4 and 5, and the investment is going to be £199. Okay, so having said that, let me move on to the mini mock. So in a typical paper, there will be 3 sections. However, since this is a mini mock, in this free content, you only have 2 sections, and this mini mock as well as the suggested answer can be accessed via our free content tab, as I highlighted earlier. Okay, so each section carries, since this is a mini mock, I've just allocated 45 minutes, but a typical paper, a typical SCS paper carries a 60-minute time frame for each task. And there are 3 subtasks in task number 1 and 2 subtasks in task number 2. And these are the weightages I was talking about previously. So based on these weightages, you can determine how much of marks you are allocated and how much time you are supposed to spend for each and every subtask. Okay. So having said that, let's move on to the first question. You received the following email from Peter Fordia, the CFO. This question is about automated dark kitchens, governance, and sustainability. A special report was commissioned by the board to determine the costs and benefits gained by Snakwheel with regards to starting its fully automated dark kitchens. So if you are wondering what dark kitchens are, I expect you to go through the pre-seen document. If you have not purchased our products, then go through the pre-seen, try to figure out what these dark kitchens are. Okay, these dark kitchens will be run using AI-backed robots. So we are gonna invest on fully automated dark kitchens. We don't have fully automated dark kitchens at the moment, but according to this question, we are going to invest on it. Okay. Financial analysts have indicated that our revenues and beta will surely increase in the future given the cost efficiencies gained. So because of these fully automated dark kitchens, our revenues will increase and so would beta. That's significantly driving the demand for our dark kitchens. Okay. So the first task, at mark and time allocation is 34%. You are supposed to explain the financial analyst's comment. So that's the first subtask. So let's move on to your answer plan. What you are supposed, let's look at what you are supposed to do with regards to developing an answer plan. So step 1 is determining the headings. So first heading is financial analyst's comment, because that's explained the financial analyst's comment. So I've stipulated the first heading, FA's or financial analyst's comment. That's your step number 1. Okay. So then let's move on to step number 2. Step number 2 is coming up with subheadings and bullet points. So when planning your answer, I said 1/3 of your time should be allocated towards planning the answer. So don't come up with huge answers which goes on for paragraphs and paragraphs. You are supposed to do it later. Using 1/3 of your time, what you're supposed to do is you are supposed to come up with a structure, answer plan or an answer structure. So that's exactly what you can see in here. So financial analyst's comment. So before we look at the financial analyst's comment, let me take you through the entire question. Okay, so first subtask is about FA's comment. Then further, Eleni, the COO, has highlighted the fact that the workload of board members has increased significantly due to the ongoing negotiations with different tech firms in relation to setting up fully automated dark kitchens. So board responsibilities have increased. And she is suggesting that it is prudent to increase salaries of all executive directors. So the COO suggested that since board responsibilities has increased, we have to increase salaries of all board members. So you are supposed to evaluate the COO's suggestion. So that's your second part, directors' salaries. Okay, so I've highlighted that. Let's move on to the third area. On an unrelated matter, I'm sharing an article which was published on the most popular food magazine in West Area. Hope you can provide recommendations with reasons describing the strategy which Snakwheel needs to adopt to minimize the impact of carbon loss. So the third area, managing impact of carbon loss. Okay, so I've determined based on the 3 subtasks, I've determined the main headings. And once you had figured out the main headings, or once you had figured out the exact requirement, then you are supposed to come up with the skeleton. So first things first, let's move on to the financial analyst's comment. What is the financial analyst telling us? He or she is telling us that the revenues and beta will increase because of us adopting dark kitchens. Okay, so these are the points which you need to highlight. Automated dark kitchens, it leads to increased cash flows because of the cost efficiencies. Our cash flows will increase outflows will decrease and cash inflows will increase. And when cash flows increases, we can provide higher dividends. And when we provide higher dividends, since we are a quoted company, we can provide higher dividends to our shareholders, and this leads to investor confidence. It's better to have a higher investor confidence when you are operating in a stock market. Okay, and as per the financial analysts, our profits will increase when our revenues increases, and when our cost decreases, then profits will increase. And when profits increases, it leads to an increment in share prices. So when our share prices increases, again, investor confidence would increase in the future. Okay. Initially, when we are fully automating, or when we are adopting fully automated dark kitchens, there will be a high cost because we need to spend a lot of money on investments. However, in the long run, we can achieve scale related cost advantages. So in the long run, our operational costs will keep decreasing. So although initially it's going to be costly for the company, in the long run, it's going to be extremely beneficial. Okay. And we are exposed to, because of our dark kitchens being fully automated, we are exposed to additional revenues as well. Because if you know what dark kitchens are, these dark kitchens are operated by restaurant partners but owned by us. So we can satisfy the needs of restaurant partners, which will help us attract more and more restaurant partners in the future who would end up using our dark kitchens. However, although all these benefits are there, we have to monitor additional operational costs when implementing this plan. And on top of that, as per what was highlighted by the financial analysts, it leads to an increased beta. Our beta value will increase. So our current beta is 0.7. From where did I get this information? From the pre-scene. So it has been highlighted or stipulated on the pre-scene that our current beta is 0.7. So you need to bring in information such as this from the pre-scene to provide better answers or add value to your answer. Okay. A beta which is less than 1 attracts low risk investors. Okay. However, because of us adopting this automation in our dark kitchens, our beta will increase, and which, if when the beta increases, what it tells us is that the volatility of shares will increase, because when shares become riskier, the beta increases. So in the short term, the share price might dip. However, in the long term, share prices will come to the same equilibrium level, or because of increased revenues and increased profitability, increased cash flows, because of investor confidence improving, share prices will actually increase in the future. And with the beta increasing, our cost of equity will increase. Okay. In the long run, the risk will reduce. Although the beta is increasing at the moment, in the long run, given the cost efficiencies, given the revenues which we are going to achieve, our business risk will decrease. Okay, so that's the answer. That's the answer plan for the first task. So you were supposed to analyze the financial analyst's comment. I've highlighted all the areas which you need to mention in your answer. Okay, so once you come up with this type of a structure, it's easier for you to recheck your answer and see whether you had fulfilled the requirements of the task. The requirement was to analyze the financial analyst's comment and try to figure out whether all these points leads to you fulfilling the requirement of the task. Okay, so that's that. Let's move on to the fully fledged answer. So I've highlighted what type of an answer structure or an answer plan you are supposed to provide. And based on that, after you have the answer plan, step number 3 is typing the answer. Okay, or once you have the skeleton, step number 3 is using 2/3 of your time and fleshing out the skeleton which we had prepared. Financial analysts comment again. Hope you guys can see that this is in bold and underlined format. That's the exact specification of your examiner. Okay. Dark kitchens, adopting fully automated dark kitchens will increase future net operating cash flows and therefore profitability. It's going to be costly initially. However, in the long run, the costs will decrease given the existence of scale related advantages. I've highlighted these points in my answer plan. Sharing our automated dark kitchens with our restaurant partners would open additional revenue streams. However, Snakwheel needs to closely monitor any additional operating costs. Again, I've highlighted all these points in my answer plan. The increased cash flows will lead to better dividend payments or higher dividend payments, and additional revenue will increase profits, thereby increasing the share price. The increased beta implies that the volatility of Snakwheel's shares would increase. The current beta of the company stands at 0.7, which is less than 1. This indicates that Snakwheel's stock is relatively low risk. The increased beta post setting up automated dark kitchens will make our stocks riskier. Therefore, the higher beta will also increase the cost of equity. This might discourage the board from seeking equity when pursuing expansion imperatives. So that's that. However, the additional risk will not be a major problem given the probability for enhanced revenues and profitability in the future. Okay, so that's exactly what I've highlighted in my answer plan. So let's move on to the second subtask. So as per the second subtask, our COO is telling us that because of us adopting dark kitchens or fully automated dark kitchens, our board responsibilities had increased, and with that, the COO has suggested that we increase the salaries of directors. So I've come up with main heading, directors' salaries. When determining directors' salaries, the remuneration committee should come into the picture, and in the remuneration committee, majority should be non-executive directors. Okay, and the board responsibilities has increased as per the COO. So if we need to figure out whether the board responsibilities has actually increased, and if board responsibilities has increased, it's prudent for us to pay higher salaries. But before paying higher salaries, the remuneration committee should benchmark with salaries paid by other players. So we need to figure out, our competitors. We need to figure out whether any of our competitors, when faced with added responsibilities, whether they had paid higher salaries. Okay. And when determining new payments, the objective should be to attract and retain capable directors. So if you look at the practical nitty-gritties, if board responsibilities has increased, still, if we are paying the same amount of salary, we are not in a position to attract and retain capable directors. So when determining the salaries, the objective should be to attract and retain capable directors. And when just because the responsibilities has increased, we are not supposed to provide excessive salaries as well, because if we do that, shareholders might think that the directors are operating out of mere self-interest. Okay. And on top of that, the nomination committee, that's what NC stands for. The nomination committee should consider whether, given the added responsibilities, whether we are supposed to appoint new directors. If that is the case, the nomination committee should go ahead with it. Okay. So let's look at the fully fledged answer. Again, I've come up with a main heading, which is in bold and underlined format. It is legitimate that directors seek for additional remuneration. Director salaries are determined by the remuneration committee, which comprises of non-executive directors. The remuneration committee should compare salaries with other comparable companies, ideally food delivery platforms which operate dark kitchens, to establish the best rate of pay. To attract and retain executive directors who are skilled and competent, Snakwheel needs to make sure that they are well remunerated. However, the salaries should not be excessive, which could lead to shareholders seeing the directors as greedy individuals operating out of mere self-interest. If the directors feel that their workload has increased significantly, the nomination committee should consider a board restructuring. Okay, so that's the answer which I've provided for subtask number 2. Let's move on to the last subtask, which I'm going to discuss tonight. On an unrelated matter, your CFO, Peter Fordia, has shared an article which was published on one of the popular food magazines in West Area. So let's go through the article to see what has been highlighted. The food delivery industry, a silent polluter. Okay, so this article highlights about the type of pollution within the food delivery industry. How does the food delivery industry impact the environment? Food delivery services impact the environment in two major ways: waste and emissions. During 2021, an 8% increase in emissions was recorded in the industry, and carbon emissions is supposed to rise by 15% in 2022. Okay, so let's look at the type of waste. The first type of waste is environmental waste, because the food deliveries in industry uses non-sustainable packaging such as single-use plastics and styrofoam, and solid waste contributes to methane emissions. So that's pretty basic and obvious. Then looking at food waste, restaurants generate around 33 million pounds of food waste per year. Again, this results in environmental hazards. And emissions. Transportation is one of the largest contributors towards greenhouse gas emissions. Snakwheel, okay, in this article, they have mentioned our company by our name. So this is actually bad for our reputation. Snakwheel, the biggest food delivery platform in the country, employs around 26,000 drivers. This is 26,000 vehicles on the road making deliveries for just one company. These issues have been highlighted by many leading environmentalists. Environmentalists stated that food delivery platforms are to be blamed. The Westarian government is also planning to impose strict emission laws. Okay, all these concerns has been raised by the environmentalists, and these concerns has been publicized on one of the leading food magazines. And with this, the government is hell-bent on changing laws, and this is actually bad for us. Right, so let's look at the requirement. We are supposed to provide recommendations with reasons describing the strategy which Snakwheel needs to adopt to minimize the impact of carbon loss. So you are supposed to highlight what we need to do to minimize the impact of carbon loss. Okay, so let's look at the answer plan. Managing the impact of carbon loss. We are supposed to identify main stakeholders. So the main stakeholders are environmentalists, the government, our restaurant partners, and at the very end, I've made general comments. Okay, so let's look at how we are supposed to deal with environmentalists. Environmentalists have a high level of interest, but a low level of power at the moment. However, they had influenced the government, they can influence the government, and they had influenced the government according to the article. It's not too prudent to negotiate directly with these guys because it might lead to further bad publicity. Instead, you are supposed to use media to engage with these guys so that Snakwheel can come up with their own narrative or their own version of the story. Okay. Then looking at the government, these guys have usually, a government has a high level of power and a low level of interest. However, based on the information provided in the newspaper article or the magazine article, the level of interest of the government is high. That's exactly why these guys are these guys are planning to change emission laws within the country. So when dealing with this type of stakeholder, it's prudent for us to engage directly with the government and try to figure out how we can change our operations so that we stick to the guidelines or the laws and regulations passed by the government. Okay. Then dealing with our restaurant partners, not just us, because of these emissions related laws changing, not just us, our company will be affected, our restaurant partners business will be affected as well. These guys have a high power as well as a high interest. Why? We are dealing with the 5 leading restaurants in West Area. So since we are dealing with the market leaders in each area, they have a high level of power and a high level of interest. And when it comes to negotiating with the government, we can ask restaurants to support us. Okay, and we can invest money on lobbying. Why should we involve ourselves with lobbying? To save livelihoods of employees, as well as to make sure that we satisfy shareholders. And however, when spending money on lobbying, it should not be too excessive, so that we do not end up pressurizing the government too much, because if we do that, and if someone gets to know about it, then that leads to extreme levels of reputational damage in the future. So at the very end, I've provided a general analysis. It's better to carry out an internal investigation to figure out whether the article was factual, or whether the information mentioned within the article was factual, especially because of the article mentioning our name. So we need to figure out whether these things were true. If yes, we have to accept our fault publicly and inform our stakeholders about steps which we are taking to mitigate these issues. So we need to communicate this mitigatory action through media as well as via our own website. Okay, so that's the answer plan, and based on that, I've developed a fully fledged answer. I'm not going to take you through the entire answer because I've highlighted all the points which I have mentioned. So I've highlighted the different stakeholders and how we are supposed to manage each stakeholder. So environmentalists, the government, and restaurant partners, and at the very end, the general analysis has been provided. So this is exactly how you are supposed to develop your answers. So as I highlighted earlier, first things first, step number 1 is determining the main headings. So these main headings highlights the main requirements as well. Once you had highlighted the main headings, step 2 is coming up with subheadings and bullet points so that you develop an answer structure. And once you have an answer structure, you are supposed to start typing your answers. So for this task, you are supposed to allocate 1/3 of your time to read and come up with this entire answer structure. Once you had come up with an answer structure for all the subtasks, then you need to start typing your answers. So as I highlighted earlier, these answer plans and answer structures should be developed on your answer screen itself. And once you have the structure, it's a matter of just, expanding these points so that you come up with fully fledged answers. Because as I highlighted earlier, some students come up with answer plans or answer structures on the scratch pad, and once you are typing your entire answer, you might end up missing one or two points, because panic sets in, and with that you might end up missing out on 1 or 2 points which you have already highlighted in your answer plan. So that's exactly why I'm suggesting to avoid such a scenario. Come up with the answer plan on the answer screen itself, then start expanding each and every point so that you don't end up missing any of the answer points which you have highlighted in your plan. Okay, right. So that is what you're supposed to do. Any questions, folks? Any questions? Did you guys understand what you're supposed to do when it comes to answer planning technique? Any questions? If you have any questions, you can switch on the mic and talk, or indicate your issues on the chat section. Any questions, folks? Right. So until you post your questions, you can contact us through our website, email, or via WhatsApp. And I invite you to follow us on our social media handles, especially check out our YouTube channel, because we are uploading all these webinars and additional content on YouTube. Check out our blog posts as well, because as I highlighted, all techniques pertaining to CIMA case study examinations, all the issues as well as solutions have been provided. So please go through all the blog posts which I've highlighted. Any questions?
Yes, I have a minor question.
Yeah. This is, yes, George.
Yes, good evening.
Good evening.
And thank you for the good job. My question is,
welcome.
You said the exam is made up of 3 hours and a task is 1 hour. Is that right?
Yeah.
So not 45 minutes as in the management case study, but it's 1 hour.
Yes, because in OCS and MCS, there are 4 tasks per paper. So because of that, the time allocation per task is 45 minutes, but at the SCS level, you only have 3 tasks. So, 3 hours divided into 3 is 60 minutes per task.
Okay. So in that case, is it the likelihood that you are going to have the task divided into 3, or maybe some can be 3, others 2?
Yeah, so typically you would have 2 subtasks per task or 3 subtasks. So in a typical paper, you would have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 subtasks in total.
Okay. Thank you.
Welcome. Purity, thank you very much for the positive feedback. Any other questions, folks? All right, seems like there aren't any questions. So thank you very much, guys, for joining in. So if you had missed out on the previous 2 webinars, I invite you guys to go through our website and access the free content. And as part of the free content, you would gain access to the recorded versions of these 3 webinars, as well as the mini mock and the suggested answer. And if you are to prepare yourself for the upcoming examination, I invite you to invest on one of the packages, the essential or the value packs. And if you have any any issues pertaining to the SCS exam or any syllabus area, I invite you to join our WhatsApp discussion forum. I'm part of the WhatsApp discussion forum. So are 2 other lead tutors of TCS. So we are always there to help you guys, realize your fullest potential. So having said that, thank you very much for joining in, and I wish you all the best when facing the upcoming SCS examination. Thank you very much. Good night and take care.